Okay, so we're here today with Melissa Caughey from Tillys Nest. I'm just going to ask you a few questions about how you've started the blog and where you've gone from here. So, when did you start chicken keeping?
I think it was the spring. Well, really, we started looking at getting chickens in the winter of 2009, and then we took the plunge in the spring of 2010. So the kids wanted a pet, and I decided I didn't really want a dog at that time. We have a dog now, but I didn't want a dog at the time because nobody was sleeping through the night, and it was almost having like a puppy in the house, a newborn. When I had read that chickens put themselves to sleep, and I started seeing them popping up in all of the garden magazines that would get me over that winter hump, I was like, maybe this chicken thing might be for us.
And how many did you start with?
We ordered 6 through the mail. And the reason...
So you did a mail order? Okay.
Yeah. Because I wanted to have all different breeds of chickens at the time. It was really hard to choose which breeds I wanted. I guess it was kind of like when I realized there were all these chicken breeds that could coexist and get along. Like dog breeds, all of a sudden you want this one, that one, and all this. And so I realized with mail order, it was simple enough that I could have all those breeds shipped to me all at once, with them just arriving on the doorstep.
And were they as chicks, or did you do the whole incubation?
As chicks, so they were day-old chicks. So we had 6 little babies come over, and they shipped overnight from the hatchery, I believe in Connecticut. And the post office lady called and said, you have a package that's arrived and it's peeping.
And it's moving.
It's moving. And it's funny because the first time when she called, it went to voicemail. So she left a message, and then she kept frantically calling, trying to reach me. Like, come get these chicks. Come get this peeping package.
Gosh. Were they adorable?
They were really cute. Yeah, they were really, really cute.
And how did the kids take to them?
So I waited till we got home to open them, although everybody in the post office who was mailing the letters wanted us to open them right then and there. I thought, oh gosh, I didn't really know what I was getting into, so I didn't want to have them jumping all over the place or popping around the post office. So we waited till we got home, and they always tell you to open them away from kids at first in case one perishes in transit, but luckily nobody perished, and it was just really cute to see their expressions. The kids were so young at that time, like 6 and 3 years old. So it was just very, very sweet to see just their little faces light up. I can still see it in my head.
And how many do you have now? So if you...
well, it's chicken math, isn't it? So you never really know how many you have. We're holding strong at 9.
9?
9 right now.
Okay. And why the name Tillys Nest? Where did this come from?
So when I had kind of started, I was thinking, of writing and capturing memories down on the website. And I really didn't want anything to be about me. I wanted it more to be about the chickens.
Okay.
And so after those 6 little chicks started getting along and figuring out who was who and the personalities and things, our head hen was an Australorp. And so an all black feathered breed with really greeny, iridescent, glossy feathers when the sun shines on them.
Nice.
Since it was an Australian breed, her name was Matilda.
Okay.
And so Tilly for short.
Sure.
And so it became Tillys Nest, and so it was all about Tilly's world. And I thought about a nest as where everything kind of emerges from in life. And so I thought of the home being like a nest, and the nest also had my family in it.
Yeah.
So.
And had you ever written a blog before, or had a website or anything like that, or was this all new to you?
No, I had no idea. I just thought it'd be fun to chronicle what was happening, because chickens actually make amazing pets, and they're really fun, and they all had personalities, and just seeing the life lessons that my kids were learning were enough to really spark something in me that I felt I had to start writing things down. So I figured, there must be a way to put this online somewhere.
And what was the interest initially, and how did it progress to where you're at today?
Yeah, I think, mostly I was just chronicling the happenings, things that were happening, things that were going on, things that my kids were learning, things that I found pretty incredible, like the time that I realized that I could tell what color eggs my chickens were going to lay by looking at the color of the earlobes. little things that some breeds like Silkies have 5 toes, and that the Silkies were discovered, probably the original chicken that Marco Polo writes about was a Silky chicken.
Oh, really?
That he saw in China.
I didn't know that.
On his adventures. And so that's most likely what the Chinese chickens looked like back then. And so they found out those things through how Marco Polo and his writings described them. So I thought that was incredibly
You just wanted to share.
fascinating. And so I thought, well, gosh, if this is fascinating to me, other people might find that fascinating too. So I just kept, as I was learning and finding things out, I just put them there almost to bookmark them for me and whoever else might need it in the future.
No, definitely. And what would you recommend to anyone who's thinking of starting to keep chickens? You know, like you were, say, 8-9 years ago. So someone who's been thinking about it for a while, maybe.
Well, I definitely think that you don't need to be a farmer to have, that's the first thing. You don't need to be a farmer. Number 2 is you don't need to really worry about having a rooster. So you can have all hens. I should make people aware that you don't need a rooster to have eggs. Hens will lay eggs regardless of that. And so I think if you're looking for something of a pet that's between cats and dogs, time-wise, and I don't, cats and dogs don't give you fresh eggs to your family. So I think those are the kinds of things. I think looking at also your local laws and ordinances are also important, because sometimes people have restrictions with pets, and also space really is not an issue, because chickens, some breeds can handle confinement really well. So there are people keeping chickens in the city like Brooklyn or Los Angeles or even Boston, and then there's people keeping chickens on farms, and then there's people somewhere in suburbia in between. So
have you noticed much of an uptake in chicken keeping, especially in your area mainly, but and from your blog?
Yes.
Because I definitely have in most recent years, 2 or 3 years, it's definitely taken off a lot more. It's trendy now.
Yeah, everybody always said, oh, the trend's going to die out, the trend's going to die out. And there's really
Who's laughing
stopping
now?
this. Exactly. It just continues to grow. And so I think that that's kind of neat to see. I think that the more people realize how amazing chickens are, the more fascinated people become with them.
No, definitely. And what would you say are the benefits of keeping chickens? Apart from obviously the fresh eggs, maybe for, especially with kids, it's quite it's quite good.
Yeah, I think well, gosh, there's so many. Mostly life lessons, I think, really.
Yeah.
Patience and respect, I think, come into, the first thing. Patience for waiting for those eggs. Understanding that you can't just call a chicken and they'll come to you initially. They can be trained like a dog, or cats really don't come when you call them sometimes, unless you have a little, they hear the can opener going or the little bag of treats. Sometimes they'll pop out. But, the whole thing of respecting them, respecting all living things, learning about responsibility, caring for something, caring for the chicken coop, giving them feed and water, responsibility.
No, definitely.
I think that's important.
And kind of like where their food's coming from as well, I guess, is quite a good life lesson to see.
And that it's a gift. You shouldn't be able to. Most people aren't as fortunate as we are around the world, where we can just go to the grocery store and
pick it
get
up,
12 identical eggs. And I think appreciating every single egg from the chickens, whether they're tiny or big or oval or speckled or spotted, I think that you really get an appreciation for more of nature.
No, definitely. And where it's come from,
Yeah.
And what would you say is your favourite recipe or thing to do with your eggs? Are you a cake baker, or are you more of a savoury dish?
Well, I don't measure anything usually.
Okay, so you just bung it in.
So I kind of just go with it.
Right.
So I think that's really hard. I think that was one of the most biggest challenges in the first book, was because there's a whole recipe chapter and I actually had to measure things.
So you're used to just being like a bit of this,
a bit of this, a bit of that. And, kids will be like, or my husband will be like, "Can you make that again?" Well, oh gosh, I better kind of write down what I did. But I guess one of my favorite things I like to make is a clafouti, which is
What's
almost
that?
like a flan custard baked dessert. It's versatile. It has berries on it with powdered sugar on top, so you can serve it warm as a dessert. You can serve it for breakfast or just a snack.
I don't think I've ever heard of it. Where is it from?
Yummy.
Does it originate from a certain
I think
country?
It's French, maybe, but I could be wrong.
Okay, we won't quote you on that.
It's kind of fun to say, though.
Say it again.
Clafouti.
Clafouti.
Yeah.
Clafouti.
It sounds better with your accent. So that's kind of fun.
What would you say is your favourite breed of chickens?
Oh,
Or have you got a real selection?
yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth. Of course, the Australorps always, because Tilly. I love the Buff Orpingtons. I don't have any on the flock right now, but they'll be the next ones that I do get. I had two that were inseparable sisters, I called them, and it was really neat to see that friendship bloom between the chickens. And you know, they always wanted to hop in our lap and be a part of whatever we were doing, and that was really neat. They're like the golden retrievers of the chicken world.
And what would you say or recommend if they're not getting along? So say you've got some chickens, or if you're introducing new chickens to the flock, how would you go about that if you've got, if they're picking on one or something like that?
Well, I guess it's kind of like the new kid in town. So it's always better to, first of all, if you're going to be integrating any new birds into your flock, to keep the flocks totally separate for about 4 weeks to make sure that they, sometimes when you introduce a new chicken, they can bring in a disease that chicken might be resistant for, but your other flock isn't. So give them time to make sure. I mean, there's nothing worse than hearing sometimes people just get chickens at a auction or meet or a show, and then they introduce them right away and everybody has an issue. It's rare, but it can happen. So keep them segregated, and then don't ever just introduce one. Always multiples. They want to have friends, because you're really integrating two flocks with two distinct pecking orders. So it's important to gradually let them see each other over time, but keep some chicken wire or even a small mini coop. Keep one flock in one and one in the other. And then I think a great time to kind of get them to mingle is free ranging together to start out. They can still escape one another, but they kind of commingle. And then when it's time to make the big move, putting the new flock that you're integrating into the bigger flock in during the evening, just put them down on the floor of the coop with some shavings. Do it on a weekend so you can get up nice and early and be out there with them and see how they're getting along. And lots of distractions, treats, cabbage piñatas, flock blocks, all kinds of things.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
And I know you don't like talking about yourself too much, but I can see you've been quite busy this summer. Yeah. So what kind of things have you been up to? What shows have you been at?
Yeah, so we've...
Jet setter.
Oh, I don't know about that. A little tired, but got some exciting things. Certainly did some of the Mother Earth News fairs are always great. And then country living fairs are wonderful too. I've got some private things that I'm doing that I'm going to be flying out for. And of course the second book is coming out November 29th, I believe. How to Speak Chicken. So that'll be good. And then roll into fall book tour and go and hopefully meet lots of awesome chicken people and friends and make some new memories.
Amazing. Sounds like it's non-stop.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
It was great to see you.
Good to see you.